The Tale of Custard the Dragon by Ogden Nash. Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon, and a realio, trulio little pet dragon. Now the name of the little black kitten was Ink, and the little grey mouse she called him Blink, and the little yellow dog was as sharp as mustard, but the dragon was a coward, she called him Custard. Custard the dragon had big sharp teeth, and spikes on top of him and scales beneath, mouth like a fireplace, chimney for a nose, and a realio, trulio, daggers on his toes. Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chased lions down the stairs. Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard cried for a nice safe cage. Belinda tickled him. She tickled him unmercifully. Ink, Blink, and Mustard, they rudely called him Percival. They all sat laughing in the little red wagon at the realio, trulio, cowardly dragon. Belinda giggled till she shook the house, and Blink said "weak," which is giggling for a mouse. Ink and Mustard rudely asked his age, when Custard cried for a nice safe cage. Suddenly, they heard a nasty sound, and Mustard growled, and they all looked around. "Mewch," cried Ink, and "oh," cried Belinda, for there was a pirate coming in the window. Pistol in his left hand, pistol in his right, and he held in his teeth a cutlass bright. His beard was black, one leg was wood. It was clear that the pirate meant no good. Belinda paled, and she cried, "Help, help!" But Mustard fled with a terrified yelp. Ink trickled down to the bottom of the household, and the little mouse Blink strategically mouseholed. But up jumped Custard, snorting like an engine, clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. With a clatter and a clank and a jangling squirm, he went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. The pirate gaped at Belinda's dragon and gulped some grog from his pocket flagon. He fired 2 bullets, but they didn't hit, and Custard gobbled him every bit. Belinda embraced him, Mustard licked him. No one mourned for his pirate victim. Ink and Blink in glee did gyrate around the dragon that ate the pirate. But presently up spoke little dog Mustard. "I'd have been twice as brave if I hadn't been flustered." And up spoke Ink, and up spoke Blink. "We'd have been 3 times as brave, we think." And Custard said, "I quite agree that everybody is braver than me." Belinda still lives in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and her little yellow dog and her little red wagon and her realio, trulio little pet dragon. Belinda is as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chase lions down the stairs. Mustard is as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard keeps crying for a nice safe cage. Hi friends, let us understand poem 9 from First Flight, Tale of Custard the Dragon by Ogden Nash. The poet Ogden Nash has penned an imaginative poem about a girl named Belinda who lived in a little white house with her pets, a black kitten, a grey mouse, a yellow dog, and a real dragon. They also had a red wagon, a cart for traveling. The black kitten was called Ink. The grey tiny mouse was called Blink. The yellow dog was named Mustard, and the dragon was a coward, a weakling, and he was called Custard. Custard the dragon had sharp teeth, spikes on the top, and scales beneath him. His mouth was like a fireplace. He had a nose resembling a chimney, and he had dagger-like toes. Belinda was herself as brave as a barrel container full of bears. Ink and Blink would chase lions down the stairs, and Mustard was as brave as a tiger when he was in rage, anger. But Custard was cowardly. He preferred to be in a cage that would keep him safe. Belinda and her other pets made fun of Custard for being cowardly. Belinda tickled him unmercifully, cruelly. Ink, Blink, and Mustard sarcastically compared him with Percival, a brave knight in the service of King Arthur. When Custard wanted to be put in a cage, Belinda and her other pets giggled. They laughed a lot, and Ink and Mustard rudely asked him how old he was, as he was scared of everything. Once Belinda and her pets heard a nasty, horrible sound. Mustard sensed trouble and he started growling. Ink and Belinda paled, became white with fear, and cried out as they saw a pirate, a sea robber, climbing into their house through their window. The pirate had guns in both hands and a bright knife, a cutlass, between his teeth. He had a black beard and a wooden leg. The pirate meant no good. He had come with no good intentions. Belinda was so afraid that she cried out loudly for help. Mustard ran away with a terrified yelp, a frightened cry. Ink trickled down, quietly went to the bottom of the household, the basement, and Blink strategically, purposefully went into a mouse hole. Custard was the only one who remained with Belinda, and he jumped up and started snorting, grunting like an engine in anger at the pirate. Then he beat his tail with a clatter and a clank, sounding like a metal chain against the floor, and with a jangling squirm, a clattering twist, in a dungeon in a prison. He charged the pirate like a robin would at a worm to eat it. The pirate was so shocked on seeing Custard that he gaped, stared at him, and gulped, drank some grog, alcoholic drink, from his flagon bottle. He then fired 2 shots at Custard from his pistol, but the bullets didn't hit Custard, and the dragon finished him up by gobbling him, eating him up, totally. Belinda was so happy with Custard that she embraced him, gave him a hug, and Mustard licked him. Both approved of him. Nobody mourned, cried about the death of the pirate who was gobbled up by the dragon. Ink and Blink started gyrating, dancing in glee, happiness. However, Mustard the little dog confessed that he would have been twice as brave if he hadn't been flustered, angry. Ink and Blink said that they would have been 3 times as brave. Custard agreed that everyone was braver than him. All was normal again with Belinda and her pets. They lived in the White House and they used their red wagon. Ink, Blink, and Mustard still appeared to be brave, and Custard was yet the coward who longed for a safe cage. The rhyming pattern of the poem. Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon, and a realio, trulio, little pet dragon. The word house rhymes with mouse, so we can call them AA. Wagon rhymes with dragon, so we can call them BB. The rhyming pattern thus is in this verse AA, BB. All the other verses also have the same rhyming pattern AA, BB. However, this verse is a little different. But presently up spoke little dog Mustard. I'd have been twice as brave if I hadn't been flustered. And up spoke Ink and up spoke Blink. We'd have been 3 times as brave, we think. And Custard said, I quite agree that everybody is braver than me. Mustard rhymes with flustered, so we take them as AA. Blink rhymes with think, so we take it as BB. Agree rhymes with me, so we take it as CC. The rhyming pattern thus is in this verse A, B, B, C, C. All the other verses also have the same rhyming pattern A, B, B, C, C. Figures of speech of the poem. Belinda lived in a little white house. The figure of speech is alliteration. The sound of consonant L is repeated in the words lived and little. With a little black kitten and a little grey mouse. The figure of speech is repetition. The word little is repeated for poetic effect. Next, and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon. The figure of speech is repetition. The words a little and is repeated for poetic effect. Next, and a realio, trulio, little pet dragon. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. The rhyming words realio and trulio are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Oxymoron. The opposite words pet and dragon are used to convey a new meaning that though Custard is a dragon, he is a pet. Next, now the name of the little black kitten was Ink, and the little grey mouse she called her Blink. The figures of speech are alliteration. The sound of consonant N, is repeated in the words now and name. Internal rhyme. The rhyming words ink and blink are used for poetic effect. Repetition. The words the little are repeated for poetic effect. Next, and the little yellow dog was as sharp as mustard. The figure of speech is simile. There is direct comparison between the dog and mustard. The point of comparison is the yellow color and the sharpness of his character. Next, but the dragon was a coward, and she called him Custard. The figures of speech are alliteration. The sound of consonant C is repeated in the words coward, called, and custard. Personification. The dragon is given the human quality of being coward. Internal rhyme. The rhyming words coward and custard are used for poetic effect. Next, Custard the dragon had big sharp teeth. The figure of speech is synecdoche. Part teeth stand for the dragon. Next, and spikes on top of him and scales underneath. The figures of speech are antithesis. The opposite words top and underneath are used in the same sentence. Synecdoche. Part spikes and scales stand for the dragon. Next, mouth like a fireplace, chimney for a nose. The figures of speech are simile. There is direct comparison between a fireplace and the mouth of the dragon. The point of comparison is to be fiery. Metaphor. There is indirect comparison between the dragon's nose and a chimney. The point of comparison is letting out smoke. Synecdoche. The part mouth and nose stand for the dragon. Next, and a realio, trulio, daggers on his toes. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. The rhyming words realio and trulio are used for poetic effect. Synecdoche. Part toes stand for the dragon. Metaphor. There is indirect comparison between Custard's toes and a dagger. The point of comparison being sharp. Next, Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears. The figures of speech are simile. There is direct comparison between Belinda and bears. The point of comparison is to be brave. Alliteration. The sound of consonant B is repeated in the words Belinda, brave, barrels, and bears. Hyperbole. There is an overstatement that Belinda is as brave as many bears. Next, and ink and blink chase lions down the stairs. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. The rhyming words ink and blink are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Hyperbole. There is an overstatement that ink and blink chased lions down the stairs. Next, Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage. The figures of speech are simile. There is direct comparison between Mustard and the tiger. The point of comparison is to be brave. Hyperbole. There is an overstatement that Mustard was as brave as a tiger in rage. Next, but Custard cried for a nice safe cage. The figures of speech are alliteration. The sound of consonant C is repeated in the words custard, cried, and cage. Oxymoron. The opposite words safe and cage are used together to convey a new meaning that Custard felt safe in a cage. Next, Belinda tickled him. She tickled him unmercifully. The figure of speech is repetition. The words tickled him are repeated for poetic effect. Next, ink, blink, and mustard. They rudely called him Percival. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. The rhyming words ink and blink are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Metaphor. The dragon Custard is compared to Percival. The point of comparison is to be brave. Personification. The animals are given the human quality of being rude. Irony. The meaning of Percival for Custard is exactly opposite. He is actually a coward and Percival was a brave knight. Next, they all sat laughing in a little red wagon at the really-o, truly-o, cowardly dragon. The figures of speech are alliteration. The sound of consonant L is repeated in the words laughing and little. Internal rhyme. The rhyming words really-o and truly-o are used for poetic effect. Onomatopoeia. The word laughing suggests sound. Next, Belinda giggled till she shook the house. The figures of speech are onomatopoeia. The word giggled suggests sound. Hyperbole. There is an overstatement that Belinda's giggling shook the house. Alliteration. The sound of consonant sh, is repeated in the words she and shook. Next, and Blink said weak, which is giggling for a mouse. The figures of speech are onomatopoeia. The word weak and giggling suggest sound. Alliteration. The sound of consonant W is repeated in the words weak and which. Next, Ink and Mustard rudely asked his age when Custard cried for a nice safe cage. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. Rhyming words ink and blink, age and cage are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Alliteration. The sound of consonant C is repeated in the words custard, cried, and cage. Oxymoron. The opposite words safe and cage are used together to convey a new meaning that Custard felt safe in the cage. Next, suddenly they heard a nasty sound. The figures of speech are repetition. The word suddenly is repeated for poetic effect. Alliteration. The sound of consonant S is repeated in the words suddenly and sound. Transferred epithet. The adjective or epithet nasty has been shifted from the pirate to the sound with which he is closely related. Next, and Mustard growled and they all looked around. The figures of speech are onomatopoeia. The word growled suggests sound. Internal rhyme. The rhyming words growled and around are used for poetic effect. Next, Mioch cried Ink and oh cried Belinda, for there was a pirate climbing in the window. The figures of speech are onomatopoeia. The word Mioch suggests sound. Exclamation. An exclamatory form is used for poetic effect. Repetition. The word cried is repeated for poetic effect. Next, pistol in his left hand, pistol in his right. The figures of speech are repetition. The word pistol in his are repeated for poetic effect. Antithesis. Opposite words left and right are used in the same sentence for effect. Synecdoche. The part hand stands for the pirate. Next, and he held in his teeth a cutlass bright. The figures of speech are synecdoche. The part teeth stand for the pirate. Alliteration. The sound of consonant H is repeated in the words he, held, and his. Anastrophe. There is an inversion in the construction of the sentence for poetic effect. Next, his beard was black, one leg was wood. The figures of speech are synecdoche. The part beard and leg stand for the pirate. Alliteration. The sound of consonant B is repeated in the words beard and black, and the sound of W is repeated in the words was and would. Metonymy. The word would represents a false leg. Next, it was clear that the pirate meant no good. The figure of speech is litotes. The negation is used to convey an affirmative meaning that the pirate meant to do something bad and harmful. Next, Belinda paled and she cried, "Help, help!" The figures of speech are repetition. The word help is repeated for poetic effect. Onomatopoeia. The word cried suggests sound. Exclamation. An exclamatory form is used for poetic effect. Next, but Mustard fled with a terrified yelp. The figures of speech are onomatopoeia. The word yelp suggests sound. Transferred epithet. The adjective or epithet terrified has been transferred from the dog to its yelp. Next, ink trickled down to the bottom of the household. The figure of speech is tautology. Unnecessary use of words down and bottom which suggest the same meaning. Next, and the little mouse blinked, strategically mousehold. The figure of speech is metonymy. The word mousehold represents hiding in a cave-like place. Next, but up jumped Custard, snorting like an engine. The figure of speech is simile. There is a direct comparison between Custard and an engine. The point of comparison is to snort loudly. Onomatopoeia. The word snorting suggests sound. Next, clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. The figures of speech are simile. There is a direct comparison between Custard and irons, and the point of comparison is to clash. Synecdoche. Part tail stands for Custard the dragon. Next, with a clatter and a clank and a jangling squirm. The figure of speech is onomatopoeia. The words clatter and clank suggest sound. Next, he went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. The figures of speech are simile. There is direct comparison between Custard and a robin, and the point of comparison is to chase. There is also comparison between the pirate and a worm, and the point of comparison is being chased. Alliteration. The sound of consonant W is repeated in the words went and worm. Next, the pirate gaped at Belinda's dragon and gulped some grog from his pocket flagon. The figure of speech is alliteration. The sound of consonant G, G, is repeated in the words gaped, gulped, and grog. The figure of speech is also metonymy. The word grog represents a drink typically drunk by sailors, and flagon represents a bottle. Next, he fired 2 bullets, but they didn't hit. The figure of speech is litotes. Negation is used to convey a positive meanings that the bullets misfired. Next, and Custard gobbled him every bit. The figure of speech is euphemism. The death of the pirate is spoken in a pleasant manner by saying the word gobbled. Next, Belinda embraced him, Mustard licked him. The figure of speech is repetition. The word him is repeated for poetic effect. Next, no one mourned for his pirate victim. The figure of speech is litotes. Negation is used to convey a positive meaning that everyone refrained from mourning about the pirate. Next, ink and blink in glee did gyrate around the dragon that ate the pirate. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. The rhyming words ink and blink, gyrate and pirate are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Anastrophe. There is an inversion in the construction of the sentence for poetic effect. Next, but presently up spoke little dog Mustard. The figure of speech is anastrophe. There is an inversion in the construction of the sentence for poetic effect. Next, I'd have been twice as brave if I hadn't been flustered. The figure of speech is litutus. Negation is used to convey a positive meaning that if Mustard had been calm, he would have been twice as brave. Next, an up spoke ink, an up spoke blink. The figures of speech are internal rhyme. The rhyming words ink and blink are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Repetition. The words up spoke are repeated for poetic effect. Next, we'd have been 3 times as brave, we think. The figures of speech are repetition. The word we is repeated for poetic effect. Internal rhyme. Rhyming words we and 3 have been used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Next, and Custard said, I quite agree that everybody is braver than me. The figure of speech is irony. The meaning is exactly opposite, that Custard was the bravest of them all and not the others. Thank you friends for watching.